So Daryl says, how long did it take you to build your team in order to have a solid platform?
Yeah, it took several years to build a solid team. And what happens is it was almost like, when I built my business, I was the player coach. So I was coaching the business and being a player at the same time. And so those transitions happened over time. So initially I was the only sales guy and I was a consultant out in the business and I hired some support staff. So I immediately hired an administrative assistant and some recruiters to kind of help me find talent as I was going out and finding work for my business. And so that transition, and that to give you an idea, I started that in 1997. It wasn't until around 2001 that I was able to pull myself away from actually being on contract to where I was saying, okay, I'm not going to be a contractor no more. I am going to just focus on selling.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a scary transition because when you're on contract, you're developing a really great, deep relationship with your client. And you're not worried about your consultants kind of going amok in your client side because you're there.
Right.
So when you pull yourself out of the client side, it could be a little scary. And I had a few challenges, in that transition, but I knew it was time for me to do that.
What year was that? You said early on.
That was 2001. So I started in 1997. So around 2001, 2002, I was pulling myself out from being on client sites. Normally I would get myself on a client site, assess the situation, go bring in more consultants that work under my brand and manage that project until we delivered and got into operation support. And then I go to another client. That's kind of how I started. And then after a while, I said, okay, after this one client I had up in Boston, it was Genuity. It was a spinoff of Verizon. After we moved over to the phase where we were just doing operations and support, I moved out and said, I'm just going to focus on sales. I'm not going to build myself out as a consultant. And so that was an interesting and monumental transition because my business needed it. It's just kind of weird how those things happen. And I made those transitions when I needed it. And then the next transition was years later when I said, okay, I'm not going to just do sales. I'm going to bring in a sales team. And now I'm going to be the CEO, so to speak. So that happened probably around 2012. It took that long, around 2010 to 2012. And then I started bringing salespeople and account managers in the business. And then now I'm in the phase where I've kind of brought in executive leadership to where I'm really more of a shareholder and more of the owner and more of the advisor and not necessarily on the day-to-day. So that was the journey.
I wanted to spend a little bit more time on this because so many people don't want to get started or don't know how to get started or scared of getting started. You mentioned that fresh out of college, you bought your condo. I want to make sure I have this progression. You got married early.
I got married at 25, right out of college.
And you're 27 now, so that's 2 years. I'm just kidding.
Something like that.
So you got married early. You had kids.
Mm-hmm. I had kids. I took kids when I was 32. So I was married for several years before I had kids. Yeah.
But that did not stop you from starting, doing the things that were necessary to get your career going.
Yeah. But you bring up an interesting point. And that point is there's never a perfect time. Right? There's never a perfect time. There's kind of just your time and everybody else's time, but there's never a perfect time. And trust me, that was not the perfect time, but timing had presented itself for me to do it. And I had to execute, and, it was scary. There's no doubt about it and not only that, I had a wife who was educated, but, because we had 3 kids at the time, it didn't make sense for her to go work and have a nanny raise the kids, right? So she was a stay-at-home mom, and I was the only breadwinner. And at the same time, I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, you can't get any more riskier than that. And so it was risky, it was lonely, it was scary, but I persevered, and by the grace of God, I made it through it. But at the same time, I was building a brand new house up in the Oakland Hills. I bought some land and built the house. And when I left my German business partners, I'd already started that project. And so here I am leaving those guys. I worked out a deal where they would pay me a portion of the money from my deals on a regular basis while I just jumped. And so sometimes people have a difficult time jumping. I completely understand that, and I respect that. The reality is you'll never fly if you're too afraid to jump. So you got to find a way to jump somehow, some way. And the reality also is you'll never have all the answers before you jump, right? Some people feel like they have to have all the answers
Right.
before they have enough confidence to jump. And I come up with this, I write about this in my book, is that your confidence to get you to jump has to be greater than your doubts and your fears, or else you'll never jump. They have to be greater than the sum of your doubt and your fears. And why I say that is because when you first set in your mind to do something, the next thought is doubt. Can I really do it? Is it really timing for that? Am I really capable? Do I have all that I need? Doubt is the first thing that comes. And then doubt invites fear to the party, because now you become consumed with your doubt. And the next thing you know, you become afraid of the things that you doubt. And so in order to kind of push forward and to jump, David, your confidence and your courage has to be greater than the sum of your doubt and your fears, or if you never jump. And I just want to add this other point too, is that you're never going to know everything that you need to know before you jump. It's almost like you imagining yourself on the tallest building in the world, and you see people jump off and fly time and time again, and you studied it long enough, and you say, wow, I've studied, how they've jumped. I've studied their velocity. I've studied how long they've fallen before they took off. And then now you have to have the courage to say, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to have the confidence that says that I'm going to figure out how to fly before I splatter to the ground. And that's just what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Figuring out how to fly. And that's why your book, and you give us the blueprint on that, right?
Yes. I mean, yeah.
So those steps that you've outlined in your book, briefly, let's kind of, give us a little bit of what we're looking at. And I think also there's a fear to start, but then there's a expectation of immediate success. Mm-hmm. Could you speak to that and let us what because it took you even 7 years or so to kind of do the prep work, but you were on that path for the entire time.
Yeah, I have this thing I say often, is that becoming a millionaire is not hard. It's just slow, right? It's just slow. And you're dealing with all the obstacles that life will throw at you. Mm-hmm. And you're navigating them, and you're blocking them, and you're pushing forward despite all those obstacles. So it's not hard. It's just slow. And a lot of times people quit because it's slow, and it can be often painful because you are sacrificing, you are suffering. Right? You're dealing with things that are uncomfortable, and you have to find a way to forge forward. And so that's why it's so important that you have, number one, a really good plan and a realistic plan based on your research and based on conversations and mentorships from others, right? So I relied heavily on my mentorship of my millionaire mentors. I asked them questions after questions. I called them. I would not stop. And so you have to kind of surround yourself around what I call jumpers, people who've actually done it, and people who've done it successfully, and people who've done it well. And to be able to pick their brain and ask them every kind of question you can answer, you can potentially come up with, because that team is so important, and they were definitely important for me. So yeah.
Is that the reason why you feel you have this urge or this desire to give back?
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. They've poured so much into me that it is my responsibility. And anybody who, and not just mine, any other brother, any other person who were blessed to have mentors pour into them, it is our responsibility to pour it and to pay it forward. That's what they instilled into me. And not do it for a fee, not do it, to enriching yourself. Do it for, the greater good of humanity and for our community. I tell people often that my mentors never said that, oh, Cedric, I'm going to teach you about this aspect of business, or I'm going to teach you about real estate. I'm going to teach you about that, but you got to pay this monthly fee, or you got to pay, you have to pay for my seminar. They gave it to me. And so since they gave it to me, I feel like it's my responsibility to give it to somebody else.
I feel so much the same way. Do you get the same? I'm speaking kind of a little bit personal now. Is that when you try to give back and you try to because I feel like you that because I've been so blessed that I have an obligation to give back. I mean, it just wouldn't be right. The karma, I really feel that when I go and meet my maker and have to justify my actions, if I don't if I haven't given back because I was so blessed that things will not go well for me. But people don't get you, at least for me.
Mhm.
They always think that there is an alternate, you have there's an alternative reason why you're doing this. Do you
Yeah.
get that also?
Oh, I get that, and we all get that, and it takes them a while. And after a while, they really get it. I was working with a branding guy out of Atlanta. His name is Nick Nelson, and we were in our first meeting. He was trying to understand me, trying to figure out how I'm going to help brand you and that kind of stuff. We did some photos, and so he says, "So what's in it for you? What what you doing? What you trying to get? What you're after?"
Yeah.
I said, "Nothing."
What's your angle?
Yeah, what's your angle? He kept asking me that. I said, "Nothing." It's like, man, it's like, I'm just trying to, I just believe that especially as it relates to the book that I've written, that I believe that, God has given me a vision and has given me what I would consider a solution to why we as a community seem to be stuck around building wealth, and so I believe that it's, if that was given to me, then I'm going to write it and I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to do everything I can possibly to put it in people's hands, and hopefully they will see it. And the only thing I'm doing is selling a book, right? I'm not trying to sell a seminar. In fact, I do social media mentoring through my Black Wealth Growth Challenging absolutely for free. So I don't charge for my time, and my time is reasonably valuable. If you look at how much money I make, and if you divide that by 2,080 hours in a year, that rate would be pretty high. But I don't do that because I believe that our community has been damaged so much. We've gone through so much untreated and unresolved financial trauma from people that look just like us that we don't need any more of it. And if I am the real deal, David, if I say I'm the real deal millionaire, right, then I don't need anybody else's money to make myself richer. I prefer that they use their money to enrich themselves, because building wealth is hard enough by itself that you do not need any more resistance, any more headwinds, meaning my own personal agenda, to get our people there.
Now, your book is named "Why Should White Guys Have All of the Wealth," right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And is it published already, or where can we get that?
The book is on Amazon. You could pre-order it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, as well as Target.com. You can pre-order it. It's titled "Why Should White Guys Have All the Wealth?" The subtitle is "How You Can Become a Millionaire Starting from the Bottom." And I mean that. The book doesn't disappoint. I mean, if you're starting, all you need is a job, right? You need a job and a willingness to work hard and a willingness to make the necessary sacrifices and a willingness to work on your mindset around money. And like I said, there's no secrets to building wealth. There's only hard work and sacrifice and time.